Somewhere out there, right now, there is a wall you were never meant to be able to explain. A single block of stone so heavy that if you called in one of the largest cranes on Earth today, it would strain to lift it. And yet somebody, thousands of years ago, with no engines and no steel, cut it, moved it, and set it in place so perfectly that you cannot slide a knife blade into the joint. That is not a legend. That is not a theory. You can go and stand next to it. And here is the uncomfortable part. It is not the only one. Scattered across the planet, on mountaintops, under the desert, out in the middle of the open ocean, there are structures that quietly break the story we were told about the past. The story where humans start out primitive and then slowly, steadily climb toward us. The clever ones, the advanced ones, because some of these places should not exist. Not with the tools their builders supposedly had, not in the time they supposedly had to work in. And in a few cases, the most honest answer the experts can give you is still just 4 words. We don't know how. So tonight, we are going to count them down. 8 of the strangest structures ever pulled out of the ground, or found still standing exactly where they were left. 8 places that do not fit. And we are going to start with a city that has no business existing at all. Because it wasn't built on land, it was built on the sea. Number 8, Nan Madol, the city built on the ocean. Off the eastern coast of Micronesia, in the vast emptiness of the Pacific, sits one of the strangest ruins on the planet. It is a city, an entire city, built not on solid ground, but directly on top of a coral reef, out in the water. They call it the Venice of the Pacific, and you can see why. Nan Madol is made of nearly 100 artificial islands, laced together by a web of canals you can still float a boat through today. But what stops archaeologists cold is not where it sits. It is what it is made of. The walls are built from gigantic columns of black basalt, long, heavy, 6-sided stones stacked like colossal logs. Some of them weigh more than 50 tons apiece, and there are thousands of them, adding up to something like 750,000 tons of rock. Now here is the problem. That basalt did not come from the reef. It was quarried somewhere else on the island and then moved across open water to this spot. With no wheels, no pulleys, no draft animals, no metal tools. On a small island with no great forests for timber and no machinery of any kind. In places, those walls still rise more than 7 meters high, 25 feet of stacked stone standing in the sea. So how did they do it? The honest answer is we still are not sure. The old islanders had their own explanation. They said 2 sorcerers simply flew the stones through the air. That sounds like a fairy tale, until you watch a modern engineer try to work out the logistics with the tools these people actually had, and slowly go quiet. Nan Madol was the sacred political heart of a dynasty called the Sodlur, who ruled here for centuries and kept the place so exclusive that ordinary people were forbidden from parts of it. Its canals still breathe with the tide, an ocean drainage system that has kept working on its own for 800 years. And the deeper you look into it, the stranger it gets. But at least Nan Madol is out in the open where you can see it. The next place on our list spent centuries completely hidden, underground, and it was big enough to swallow an entire population. Number 7, Derinkuyu, the city beneath the city. In the dry plains of central Turkey, there's a small, ordinary-looking town. Nothing on the surface tells you what is waiting below it. Because underneath Derinkuyu, the ground has been hollowed out into a city that plunges more than 80 meters straight down, around 18 levels, deep into the earth. It is the largest underground city we have ever found. And it is not a cellar or a bunker. It has living quarters, stables for animals, kitchens, storerooms, wine and oil presses, chapels, even a school, wells for fresh water, and a ventilation system so cleverly built that fresh air still moves through every single level, all the way to the bottom, with no machinery at all. At its peak, experts believe as many as 20,000 people could have lived down there at once, hidden, fed, and breathing, with the surface sealed off above them by enormous circular stone doors, rolled shut from the inside so that no invader could ever follow. And the way we found it is almost unbelievable. In 1963, a man in Derinkuyu was renovating his home, knocked down a wall in his basement, and found a passage leading into the dark. Behind it was the labyrinth, level after level after level. And Derinkuyu is not even alone. Tunnels are thought to link it to other underground cities kilometers away, an entire hidden world beneath the region. Nobody is completely certain who first carved it, or exactly when. Some of the earliest chambers may reach back thousands of years, cut long before later peoples inherited the city and dug it deeper still. And all of it was carved into soft volcanic rock, soft enough to work by hand, yet somehow stable enough to hold for millennia without collapsing. But the question that lingers is not really how, it is why. Because you do not carve a hidden world 80 meters underground, built for 20,000 people to survive the long term, unless you are afraid of something. Something bad enough to drive an entire civilization beneath the earth. If Derinkuyu is unsettling because of how far it reaches down, the next one is unsettling because of how it fits together, stone by stone, with a precision that looks like it came off a machine. Number 6, Puma Punku, the blocks that shouldn't fit. High in the Bolivian Andes, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, almost 4,000 meters above the sea, there is a ruin that does not look ancient. It looks manufactured. Puma Punku is part of a larger site built by the Tiwanaku civilization around 1,500 years ago, and it is scattered with enormous stone blocks cut with a precision that stops people in their tracks. Some of these blocks weigh well over 100 tons, and they are not rough. They have perfectly straight edges, smooth drilled holes, clean right angles, internal corners so sharp and so square that the pieces look less like carved rock and more like machined components. The most famous of them are called the H blocks, dozens of stones, each carved to nearly the same dimensions, as if they came from a single mold. So consistent that many of them are interchangeable. And whoever made them worked in hard andesite and sandstone with, according to the textbooks, stone hammers and no iron tools at all. Then there is the quarry problem. The nearest source for some of this stone lies more than 10 miles away across brutal mountain terrain at an altitude where the thin air itself fights you. Now, I want to be straight with you here, because this is exactly the kind of place where the story runs wild. You will hear that Puma Punku proves aliens or some vanished super technology, and the careful truth is quieter and in its own way more impressive. The precision is real, but it does not require magic. It requires human beings with staggering skill, patience, and organization, grinding, measuring, and fitting stone to a standard we simply assumed ancient people could never reach. The mystery is not that it is impossible. The mystery is how badly we underestimated the people who did it. Let me stop here for just a second, because if you have made it all the way to number 6 with me, past the city in the ocean, past the labyrinth under Turkey, you already know the kind of channel this is. Every single day we take the tidy version of history and we test it against the actual stones, the actual evidence, and we tell you what holds up and what falls apart. If that is your kind of thing, do me a favor and subscribe. There is a certain kind of person who would rather have a real question than a comfortable answer. I think that is you. Now, back up the mountain, because the next one makes even Puma Punku look small. Number 5, the Kailasa Temple, the mountain that was carved into a building. In Western India, at a place called Ellora, there stands a structure so ambitious that modern architects still struggle to wrap their heads around it. Because the Kailasa Temple was not built the way buildings are built, from the ground up, block by block. It was carved downward, out of a single mountain of solid rock. The workers started at the top of a cliff and cut straight down into it, chiseling away an estimated 200,000 tons of stone. And what they left behind standing in the pit they had carved was a complete temple. Columns, staircases, bridges, shrines, life-sized elephants, towers rising several stories into the air, all of it one single continuous piece of rock. Nothing stacked, nothing assembled, nothing that could be taken apart, because there were no parts. And think for a moment about what that actually means. When you build upward from blocks and you make a mistake, you pull out a block and replace it. Here, there was no going back. Every cut was permanent. One serious error anywhere, and the entire mountain temple could have been ruined for good. According to tradition, this may have been completed in under 20 years. Run the numbers on that, and it borders on the absurd. Dozens of tons of rock removed, cleanly and precisely every single day, for years, with hand tools. Many researchers suspect the real timeline was longer than the legend says, but even at its most generous, the achievement is almost hard to believe. Seen from above, the Kailasa Temple does not look like something people built. It looks like something that was uncovered, lifted whole out of the earth. And yet, as strange as these places are, we still have not reached the heavy ones. Because the next structure was built from stones so massive that our biggest modern machines would strain just to lift a single one. Number 4, Baalbek, the stones of the gods. In the mountains of Lebanon stands one of the greatest engineering mysteries ever found. If you have been with this channel for a while, you already know this one. We gave it an entire video of its own, but no honest countdown of the strangest structures on Earth could ever leave it out. At Baalbek, known in the ancient world as Heliopolis, the city of the sun, the Romans built the largest temple in their whole empire, the Temple of Jupiter. It once stood ringed by 54 columns, each around 20 meters tall, as high as a 7-story building. Only 6 of them are still standing today, and even that fragment leaves visitors speechless. And that by itself is not the mystery. The Romans were master builders. We understand roughly how they worked. The mystery is what their temple is standing on. Underneath it lies a platform, and set into the western wall of that platform are 3 of the largest building blocks ever placed by human hands. They are called the trilithon, 3 stones, side by side, each one about the length of 2 buses, and each one weighing somewhere around 800 tons. Let that number land. 800 tons is heavier than a fully loaded jumbo jet, and these blocks are not resting on the ground, where you might just about picture dragging them. They were lifted, hoisted several meters up into the air, and set down on top of another course of stone, so precisely that 2,000 years later, you still cannot slide a knife blade into the joints between them. No mortar, no gaps, just 800 tons of rock, placed like a jeweler setting a gem. And it gets worse. Because 800 meters away in the quarry these blocks were cut from, the truly impossible ones are still lying in the ground. One finished block there weighs around 1,000 tons. Another, uncovered as recently as 2014, is estimated at roughly 1,650 tons, which makes it, as far as we know, the single largest stone block human beings have ever carved. And it was cut, shaped, and then simply left, abandoned in the quarry, as if the workers walked off one afternoon and never came back. Which raises a question stranger than how. Why cut a 1,600-ton block at all? Nobody carves the heaviest object in human history for decoration. Whoever shaped it fully expected to move it, which means they believed they had a method for handling weights that would challenge us even now. So how were these moved? The old legends had a simple answer: giants. A race of giants who raised Baalbek in the time before the flood. Modern historians reject that, and they are right too. Careful excavation has tied the work to the Roman period, using tools and methods we know the Romans had. Ramps, rollers, ropes, and thousands of workers hauling in unison. The likeliest explanation is that the blocks were never hoisted straight up at all, but dragged up a great earthen ramp and eased sideways into place, since the quarry sits on slightly higher ground than the temple. That is probably how it was done. But I have to be honest with you, the way this channel always tries to be. There is no surviving Roman account that says, "Here is how we raised the trilithon." No manual. No proud inscription bragging about the greatest lifting operation in the ancient world. The exact method is a careful reconstruction, not an eyewitness record, and serious engineers still argue over the details today. Even now, moving and precisely placing an 800-ton block is a major operation that needs specialized equipment most companies do not even own. To do it 3 times with nothing but rope, timber, and muscle would rank among the most impressive feats in all of human history. So we are left with a strange, honest verdict. We do not need giants to explain Baalbek, but we also cannot fully explain it either. The stones are real, they are documented, measured, dated, and they are still sitting there in Lebanon right now, daring anyone to come and work out exactly how. And from the heaviest stones in the ancient world, we climb to the highest city, a place the Incas raised on the very spine of a mountain and built in a way that let it survive the one thing that should have torn it to the ground. Number 3, Machu Picchu, the city that refused to fall. Hidden high in the Peruvian Andes, wrapped in cloud on a narrow ridge nearly 8,000 feet above the sea, Machu Picchu sat unknown to the outside world for centuries. When the American explorer Hiram Bingham brought it to global attention in 1911, people could barely believe the photographs. An entire city, temples, homes, terraces, fountains, perched on the very top of a mountain. But the location, as breathtaking as it is not the real mystery. The mystery is how it is built. The Incas raised Machu Picchu right in the middle of an earthquake zone. In that part of the world, the ground moves, and it moves hard. Anything rigid should eventually crack and come down. And yet Machu Picchu is still standing, 5.5 centuries later. The question is why? The answer is in the stonework. The finest walls here are built in a style called ashlar. Stones cut and ground so precisely that they lock together with no mortar at all. No cement, no glue. Just rock against rock, fitted so tightly that, in places, you cannot slip a sheet of paper into the seam. And that perfect fit is not only for beauty. When an earthquake strikes, the stones in these walls are said to move, to shudder and shift slightly, and then settle right back into place instead of shattering. It is earthquake engineering, worked out by hand, centuries before anyone wrote down the science behind it. Look closely and you notice the doorways and windows are not rectangles. They are trapezoids, slightly wider at the bottom and leaning inward, another quiet trick that helps the walls hold together when the earth shakes. And here is the part almost nobody realizes. What you see in the famous photographs, the walls, the terraces, the plazas, is only part of the structure. Studies suggest that as much as 60% of Machu Picchu is underground. Beneath the beautiful city lies a hidden skeleton of deep foundations, layers of crushed rock for drainage, and channels engineered to carry away the enormous rainfall of the mountains. Without that invisible system, the whole site would have slid off the ridge in a landslide centuries ago. The Incas built the part you cannot see with just as much genius as the part you can. And ringing the whole site are the terraces. Hundreds of stone steps carved into the mountainside, holding the soil in place, growing the food, and stopping the slope from washing away in the rain. Now remember where all this stone had to go. Every block was shaped and hauled into place thousands of feet up a mountain, along ridges and cliffs, with no wheels and no animal on earth strong enough to carry loads like that up such ground. It was done with human backs, ropes, and patience. And they did all of it without iron tools, without the wheel, without a written language, at least not one made of letters. They kept their records in knotted cords instead. And still they produced one of the most stable mountain cities in the history of the world. So what was it for? On that, even the experts disagree. Some believe Machu Picchu was a royal estate, a mountain retreat built for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti. Others argue it was a sacred center, its temples and carved stones aligned to the movements of the sun. There is a carved stone near the summit, and on certain days of the year, the sunlight falls across it exactly as it seems designed to. There is one more haunting detail. The Spanish conquistadors who tore the Inca Empire apart never found Machu Picchu. It was simply abandoned, and the mountain kept its secret, which is part of why it survived so complete, while so much else was looted and destroyed. What is beyond argument is this. On a knife edge of rock, in a place that should have been impossible to build and impossible to hold, the Incas raised something that has outlasted the empire that made it, the conquest that came after, and 500 years of earthquakes. They were not primitive, we just needed the story to say they were. And that brings us to the second strangest structure of them all. The most studied ancient building on Earth, and somehow still one of the least understood. Because for all the millions of words written about it, the Great Pyramid is still keeping secrets. And some of them are being pulled into the light right now, in our lifetime. Number 2, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the impossible geometry. For more than 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid has stood on the edge of the Egyptian desert, like a message left for us by another age. It was the tallest structure on Earth for almost 4,000 years. Nothing humans built was taller until the great cathedrals of medieval Europe. And after more study than any other building in history, it is still holding on to its secrets. Start with the raw numbers, because they are hard to even picture. The Great Pyramid contains roughly 2.3 million stone blocks. 2.3 million. They weigh on average a couple of tons each, but the largest, the granite beams over the King's Chamber, weigh as much as 80 tons apiece, and they were brought from a quarry more than 500 miles away, then somehow lifted dozens of meters up into the very heart of the pyramid. Then there is the precision. The base is aligned to true north, to within a tiny fraction of a single degree, an accuracy that is difficult to match even today with modern instruments. Its proportions hide mathematical relationships that people still argue about, ratios that seem to echo the number pi, and even the dimensions of the Earth. Some of that is surely coincidence, but not all of it is easy to wave away. And when it was new, the whole pyramid was sheathed in polished white limestone, smooth as glass, so bright under the sun that it could be seen from the hills for miles, a mountain of light in the desert. Most of that casing was stripped away long ago to build medieval Cairo. Inside, it gets stranger. The pyramid is threaded with chambers and narrow shafts, and some of those shafts appear to point directly at specific stars, exactly where those stars sat in the sky thousands of years ago when the pyramid was raised. Whether that was deliberate is debated, but it is there. And then, of course, the biggest question of all, how? How did people, 45 centuries ago, quarry, move, lift, and place millions of blocks with this kind of accuracy? Here is where I have to be fair with you, because this is the one place on our list where we have actually learned a great deal, and learned it recently. The old ideas that the pyramids were built by armies of slaves, or worse, by visitors from the stars, have quietly fallen apart. We now have the diary of a man named Merer, a real overseer who helped haul limestone to Giza, written on papyrus that survived 4,500 years. We have found evidence of canals that floated the stone almost to the base by water, and of wet sand used to slide the heavy sledges. Piece by piece, the fog is lifting. The builders were not slaves, and they were not gods. They were skilled, organized, well-fed Egyptian workers, and they were brilliant. But, and this is the part that keeps it at number 2, the pyramid is not finished surprising us. In just the last few years, using cosmic rays to see straight through solid stone, scientists have found spaces inside the Great Pyramid that nobody knew were there. A hidden corridor tucked behind the original entrance. And above the Grand Gallery, a large, empty void, around 30 meters long, sealed away for 45 centuries. And to this day, nobody knows what it is or why it is there. There are older stories too. Napoleon, it is said, once had himself shut inside the king's chamber alone through the night, and came out pale and shaken and refused for the rest of his life to say what he had experienced in there. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it is just a good story. But it fits the strange pull this place has always had on people. Sit with that for a moment. The most examined structure on the planet, studied for hundreds of years by thousands of experts, and it is still revealing rooms we have never seen. Which leaves us with an unsettling truth. We still do not fully know what is hidden inside the most famous monument on Earth. And yet, for all its scale and all its secrets, the pyramid was at least built the way we expect a great building to be built, raised up block by block out of the desert. The final structure on our list was not. To make it, they did not stack or lift anything at all. They reached down into the living rock of a mountain, and they carved a masterpiece out of the earth itself. Number 1, Lalibela, the churches carved out of the earth. In the highlands of Ethiopia lies a place so extraordinary that when the first European visitors tried to describe it, People back home refused to believe them. They assumed the travelers were lying or dreaming. Because at Lalibela, there are 11 churches, full churches, with roofs, doorways, windows, columns, and pillars, and not one of them was built. Every single one was carved, downward, out of solid rock. Stop and picture how that even works. You do not lay a foundation and stack stones upward. You start at ground level, on top of the bare rock, and you cut. First, you dig deep trenches straight down into the mountain, all the way around a huge mass of stone, until that mass stands alone, freed from the rock around it, like a giant block sitting in a pit. And only then, with hammers and chisels, do you begin to hollow it out from the top down. You carve the roof, then the windows, then the entire interior, the columns, the arches, the ceilings, the staircases, the drainage channels, sculpting a complete church out of the inside of a single rock, with no way on earth to add a piece back if you ever cut too far. And there was a reason for all this. When Jerusalem fell out of Christian hands, a king named Lalibela set out to build a new Jerusalem of his own, here in the Ethiopian mountains, so his people could make their sacred pilgrimage without crossing a hostile world to reach the Holy Land. He even named the small river that runs through the site the Jordan. The most famous of the churches is called Beit Georgis, the Church of St. George. It sits at the bottom of a pit nearly 40 feet deep, carved in the perfect shape of a cross. From the surface, you can walk right to the edge and look down onto its roof. And from above, it does not look like a building at all. It looks like something pressed into the earth by a hand far larger than ours. The scale of the work is staggering. Tens of thousands of cubic meters of rock were cut away and carried off. No explosives, no steel machines, no modern engineering of any kind. Just people and time and an almost unimaginable amount of faith. The 11 churches are stitched together by a maze of trenches and tunnels, a hidden network you can still walk through, and carved drainage channels that quietly protect the whole complex from the rains to this day. In fact, the local tradition says the work went so fast that it could only be explained one way, that angels came down and continued the carving through the night while the human workers slept. And when you stand there and see just how much stone had to vanish, you start to understand why they reached for an explanation like that. But here's what truly makes Lalibela the strangest of them all. And it is not the how, it is this. Lalibela never became a ruin. Every other place on this list is a shell of what it once was. Silent, emptied out, picked over by tourists and studied by archaeologists trying to reconstruct a life that ended centuries ago. Lalibela is different. Lalibela is alive. Nearly 900 years after these churches were cut from the mountain, priests in white robes still walk down those same rock-hewn passages every single week to hold the very same ceremonies in the very same rooms. The churches were never abandoned. They were never forgotten. They were never lost and then rediscovered, because the people who made them simply never stopped using them. And maybe that is the most quietly powerful thing on this entire list. Not a mystery waiting to be solved, but a thread that was never once broken. A living answer to the question all these other places only whisper. So there it is, our countdown. 8 structures that refuse to fit the neat little story we tell ourselves about the past. And if you line them all up in your mind, the city on the ocean, the world hollowed out beneath Turkey, the machine blocks high in the Andes, the temple cut from a single mountain, the impossible stones of Baalbek, the city that dances through earthquakes, the pyramids still hiding sealed rooms, and the churches carved alive from the rock. A single, uncomfortable pattern begins to form, and it forces a question far bigger than any one of these places on its own. Let me tell you what I think all 8 of them together are really trying to tell us. We are taught history as a straight line, a steady climb up out of the dark. Cavemen, then farmers, then a slow upward march. Each generation a little sharper than the last, each century a little more advanced, all of it leading, conveniently, to us, the clever ones, the peak of the story. These 8 places quietly refuse that story, because look at what we actually found. A people moving 50-ton stones across open ocean with no machinery. A civilization that hollowed out a city for 20,000 souls, 80 meters underground. Blocks cut so precisely 1,500 years ago that they look machined. A mountain turned into a temple, from the top down, with no room for a single mistake. 800-ton stones lifted and fitted together like jewelry. A city engineered to survive the very earthquakes that flatten modern towns. A pyramid, 45 centuries old, still hiding sealed rooms we have only just found. And churches carved alive out of the rock, still breathing after 900 years. None of this required aliens. I want to be very clear about that because it is the easy exit, and it is the wrong one. Every honest look at these places leads back to the same builders. Human beings, people with our hands and our minds, and far more skill than we ever gave them credit for. But that leaves us with something stranger than aliens. Because if ancient people could do all of this, with rope and stone and water and their own backs, then how much did we lose along the way? The Romans raised Baalbek, and then nobody moved stones like that again for 2,000 years. The technique did not improve, it simply vanished. And the same thing is true over and over across this whole list. Knowledge that took centuries to build, gone in a single generation, waiting, sometimes for 1,000 years, to be painfully rediscovered by someone else, somewhere else much later. And it is not only stone. Think of Roman concrete, which could set underwater and even heal its own cracks. A recipe the world forgot for the better part of 2,000 years. Think of the Antikythera mechanism, a geared bronze device for predicting the movements of the heavens, pulled from a shipwreck so far ahead of its age that nothing like it shows up again for over 1,000 years. Think of Damascus steel or Greek fire, methods so closely guarded and then so completely lost that we still cannot fully reproduce them today. Knowledge does not only pile up, sometimes it drains away. So maybe history is not a straight line at all. Maybe it is not even a climb. Maybe it is a tide. Knowledge rises and floods in and glitters for a while, and then it goes out, and the sand is smooth again, as if none of it had ever happened. And every so often we dig, and we find the high water mark of a people who reached much further than we assumed anyone could, before it was all lost. That is the thing these 8 structures share. Not that they are impossible, but that every single time we stand in front of one and say those words, "No human could have built this," we are not really talking about the stone at all. We are confessing something about ourselves, about how small we quietly assume the people before us must have been. They were not small. They stood exactly where we are standing now, looked at the thing everyone said could not be done, and did it anyway. And then, more often than not, we forgot them. The strangest structure on Earth is not on any list. It is the blind spot in our own heads, the one that keeps insisting the past was simple, right up until the past leaves us standing in its shadow with nothing to say. If you made it this far, you already know this isn't the kind of channel that's going anywhere. We put out something like this every single day, the version of the story that survives contact with the actual evidence. Subscribing keeps you in that loop. And if this one stayed with you, send it to 5 people who'd sit through something this long with you. Not everyone will. Some people do. Leave a comment, a real one. Tell me what part of this actually surprised you. And tell me what civilization, what forgotten site, what quiet piece of hidden history you want us to look at next. We'll be here tomorrow, still digging.